Max Verstappen wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Max Verstappen puts his name up in lights once again. Max Verstappen wins the Mexico City Grand Prix. For the 50th time in Formula One, Max Verstappen takes victory. Max Verstappen wins 19 Grand Prix in a single season.
If the 2023 season was the calm, the 2024 season has been the storm. For Formula One fans, it has been absolutely insane to watch. But realistically, how did we go from what was an absolute snooze fest to a banger race almost every single weekend? I mean, if you look at it, 2023 was as close to a status quo as we could get. We had one clear dominant team in the form of Red Bull, who made the whole season a blur of wins, literally winning every single race bar one. Thank you, Carlos Sainz, for allowing me to keep at least a string of sanity. It wasn't just the races that were a bit boring last year, though. The driver market was boring too. I mean, mid-season, you had Debris kicked out for his love of debris. But apart from that, Liam Lawson standing in for a wristless Ricciardo was about the only other driver market changes that happened. So in terms of drama over there, it was also a boring season. In fact, for the first time ever in Formula One history, we had the same lineup at the end of 2023 as at the start of 2024. There were some questions raised, obviously, as to if Formula One was straight up just going down the toilet. But then, at the end of 2023, perhaps the biggest move of the season happened. A piece of ham decided to move to Italy. With Lewis announcing the news that he would go to Ferrari for 2025, things just went kind of nuts. First of all, there were the big questions.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past.
Where did Carlos Sainz, who has been replaced, go? And the second question was, what should I have for lunch today? Because I'm kind of a hungry little fella. Also, something about them replacing Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes seat. I mean, Lewis Hamilton is a huge advocate for equal rights, but just don't ask him what his F1 team were doing between 1939 and 1945. Going into the actual racing of 2024, though, it was so boring still. After a year of watching Red Bull win everything, it genuinely felt like that was going to happen again. Heading into Bahrain, Verstappen takes the victory 22 seconds ahead of P2, which was his teammate Checo Perez, therefore making it a dominant 1-2 for Red Bull, and pretty much every Formula One fan groans in pain during that 22-second gap it takes Sergio Perez to cross the line after his teammate. And of course, all the English fans try their absolute best to avoid throwing things at their family in a fit of rage because their drivers didn't win.
In the life of a true Brexit geezer.
In Saudi Arabia, next round, Verstappen is again 13 seconds ahead of Perez. Although this time we did get a safety car caused by Lance Stroll. We can always count on him to bin it in the wall. Because of the safety car, Norris did get a little taste at leading a race. This is also the first round where we got a little bit of stirring in the hugely disorganized pot that is the F1 driver market, as Mr. Ollie Bearman became the first British driver to race for Ferrari in the 21st century, as Carlos Sainz had major surgery on one of his internal organs. That's not even a joke, it's just one of the best ways of putting it. Anyway, with Ollie Bearman taking that title, it probably annoyed Hamilton quite a bit, who was set to become the first British Ferrari driver in the 21st century. Anyway, Bearman drove an absolutely great race, and many of the teams were beginning to just throw contract offers at him. Unfortunately, not for Stroll's seat. Other than that, though, competition at the front still seemed like a crazy dream. Remind people of the title fight in 2021 at this point in the season, and they'd probably tell you something like that was impossible.
First chicane once again. It's wheel to wheel.
It's not true.
Hamilton of Verstappen, and this time
That's impossible.
Next up, though, was Australia, and things took a turn that hopefully upset Red Bull a bit. Pole position, of course, went to Max, despite his teammate potentially taking a wrong turn and ending up in P6. Yet my main man, fired from his job, Carlos Sainz, he was right on the back of Max in P2. Then, for the first time in possibly 15 million years, Max Verstappen had an issue. His car did a huge fart and died. So the man who literally just had surgery to remove his appendix, he only went and won the race. Go on, Carlos Sainz. And it was a brilliant 1-2 to Ferrari to rub in Red Bull Racing's faces. Weirdly though, no matter what, even if we have the most boring season known to man, Australia almost always seems to be an absolute banger of a race. Which is really annoying because I hate the fact that I have to wake up at 3 a.m. to not miss one of the best races of the season. Can we not just move Australia closer to us or something? As you know, they can keep their weird ass wildlife to themselves. Oh, last teeny tiny thing about Australia.
Red flag, red flag.
Red flag, you got Stroll.
Red, 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 red.
Moving on to the Japanese Grand Prix. F1 had pissed off Max Verstappen. So Max whizzed round to pole position in an absolutely mega lap, then won by 12 seconds in another 1-2 to Red Bull. At this point in the season, it was clear Ferrari were the second best team, which was a little bit of a surprise considering McLaren looked like they were the ones who were closest to Red Bull last year. But yet again in Japan, Sainz and Leclerc finished ahead of Baldo and Oscar. On to China, and we had our first sprint weekend. Yeah. And also some upgrades for the McLaren team, which honestly, much like last year, were exactly what they needed. There's also another little wobble from Red Bull this weekend, as Lando Norris was the one to start on sprint pole, followed by the old man patrol, Hamilton and Alonso. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. You're the youngest rookie. I promise. Then there was also Max sat in 4th on the grid, so not far off. Starting the sprint, Lando Norris all over the track. Verstappen and Hamilton then went on to have a fight that was nowhere near as exciting as 2021, and Alonso took some tips from his teammate and ended up with a DNF. The sprint honestly just predicted the Grand Prix, where Verstappen took the win by 13 seconds to Lando Norris, and Checo Perez dipped into 3rd place 15 seconds away from Max. But also my man Joe, he finished in Joe position. Very good job. Well done. Off now to the good old United States.
What do you mean I'm not allowed in the Walmart?
And the tables really turned here. The race started with a classic, Verstappen leading from the Ferraris and Perez, and then also the McLarens. What we'd seen basically from the start of the year. However, Logan sargented, and out came the safety car that changed everything. If I was one of those video essay YouTubers now, you'd see a VHS entering something. But I'm not, so here's a British man shouting skibbity toilet.
Now listen up, I have a story about a man called Skibbity Toilet.
Lando Norris must have read his horoscope this race, or had some good karma or something, because his luck was absolutely incredible. He got a free pit stop and was in the lead of the race on the restart. Now, if we stuck to our status quo, Verstappen would be expected to take the lead back. But instead, Lando actually had more pace on track than the Red Bull and took home his maiden Formula 1 victory. Rest in peace, Lando No wins 2019 to 2024. That meant heading into Imola, fans were actually excited to see what McLaren could bring.
Pizza.
Probably the first time in 2 years we'd thought any car other than Red Bull would be able to win a race. This time though, Verstappen made the difference. He took pole position by a 10th from Lando, and despite Norris's best efforts to catch Verstappen, he finished the race less than 1 second behind him. It was the first time this season a race had finished so close. You might know some though. In the last couple of races, Ferrari had fell off just a little bit. They haven't been able to close the gap to Red Bull like McLaren had.
Hello.
And therefore were jeopardizing their potential charge to the front of the grid. Monaco, however, was set to change that. The team wanted to secure that home win for Charles, break the god-awful curse. And therefore, they brought some major upgrades to the track. Saturday qualifying would prove to be the most important part of the race, with the actual race itself being relatively uneventful, apart from Checo having a meeting with the Haas drivers. Leclerc would channel his inner "your dad taking you to the airport" and got pole and the win. Ferrari were back on the table. So heading into Canada, everyone was curious. Who would win? Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull? Who would take pole around the twisty, tight track? Osama bin Russell, baby! Let's go! Oh yeah, the Stella drinking Brexit voters are so back. George Russell made everyone who hangs an England flag outside their house very proud. He took pole position and would reasonably quickly lose the lead to Max and Lando Norris. And now, due to bad luck with the safety car this time, Lando lost out on the win. Ferrari had what was definitely their worst weekend. A double DNF compared to McLaren's double points finish. Perez also, well, he was just Perez. For the next round in Spain, I actually drove down with a couple friends to watch the race in real life. Highlights of the weekend included everybody being an Alonso fan and everyone booing Esteban Ocon when his face appeared on the intro, which was actually hilarious because there were some French fans right next to us. Sacre bleu. This race, Lando took pole, so of course bottled it because Osama bin Russell absolutely sent it against him. Max again made the difference despite Norris's attempts to close at the end of the race, although McLaren would once again outscore Ferrari. Next round was Austria, and by this point everybody realized how close Lando and Max were, and therefore that we actually had a bit of a title battle on our hands. Now this year, Max wasn't just going to be walking away with it. Max and Pro Bottler lined up 1-2 on the grid. Would Lando be able to have a good start, take the lead, take victory, or would Max be able to hold him off as he had done the past few rounds? Osama bin Russell, baby, let's go, he's back! Lando and Max had a crashy crash, and George's good form finally paid off, allowing him to inherit the win. Despite Lando's retirement from the race due to the crash, with the sprint included, McLaren outscored Ferrari again and closed the gap to Red Bull because Perez. It was now time for the Great British Grand Prix, and Lando wanted nothing more than for him and McLaren to take the home victory. But you get the idea, here comes Osama bin Russell. Yeah, honestly, looking back at it, I never realized what an incredible run George had these past few races. But in this part of the season, he was absolutely on fire. Surprisingly, this weekend, Mercedes actually had pace. And some people probably got flashbacks to 2014 to 2020, which I imagine Toto Wolff liked very much. Russell and Hamilton locked out the front row, but George's engine sadly did its best impression of a Renault and he had to retire. Despite McLaren's efforts, even if they did give Oscar the worst strategy ever, Hamilton took the win that day and had a little cry on the podium. Ferrari had a relatively poor weekend and again were outscored by McLaren. Perez. On track, the Hungarian Grand Prix wasn't the most exciting of the season, but oh my, it was probably the closest we'd ever get to having an open mic lobby in Formula 1.
I live in Smethwick, Birmingham. If you want the fucking brawl, come down Smethwick Hospitality or come out now.
Oscar took the lead after Lando, well, pro-bottled the start. However, Lando was given the better pit strategy out of fear Leclerc or Hamilton would undercut him. And therefore, he accidentally undercut Oscar. The team tried to rectify this by swapping Oscar and Lando, but caused obviously a huge argument, as Lando was like, well, look, I'm ahead now.
What is your problem, man? Do you know how to fucking drive? No.
This basically tainted Oscar's first win as the radio was so dramatic. Verstappen also had a little bit of a gamer rage.
No, man, don't give me that now. You guys give me the strategy, okay? I'm trying to rescue what's left.
Time for Circuit des Spa-Francorchamps, my beloved. Man, this track has probably got to be one of my favorites. And the race this time was certainly interesting. Verstappen took pole from Leclerc, but got nerfed with a grid penalty. Side plot, Checo was P2 on the race start, and somehow managed to finish 7th when his teammate started 11th and finished in 4th. Thank you, Perez. Anyway, funny aside, Lewis Hamilton would be the one to take a commanding lead over the race. And most teams, and Hamilton included, decided to settle for a 2-stop pit strategy on the newly resurfaced Spa track. Apart from Osama bin Russell, baby! Oh yeah! He's back with a vengeance, let's go! Bin Russell gambled on the 1-stop.
Let's go gambling!
And it paid off. He was leading the race and with enough pace to keep Hamilton behind him. So he took yet another race victory. After the race, George's car was weighed, and it was found to be underweight. He was therefore disqualified from the race, and Lewis Hamilton took his 2nd win of the season. That was 2 in a row for him. McLaren again outscored Ferrari, with Oscar in 2nd and Leclerc in 3rd. This would now kick in the summer break, and F1 took a bit of a relax from racing. So let's do the same here. Firstly, if you want to support the channel, I've got a couple quick things you can do. If you do fancy some F1 merch, consider using code DanNoSkill10 over at V12RS to provide official Formula 1 merch from all of the teams. If you use the code, you get 10% off, and also 10% of the proceeds, whatever you buy, go towards the channel. So a huge thank you. Or if that's a little bit too expensive for you,
will you shut up? Hey. Shut the hell up. Shut up!
From just 99p a month, you can become a channel member and get access to exclusive videos, an exclusive channel in the Discord, and priority reply to your comments. Right, with that done, let's get back to our summer break. Despite there being no racing, there was plenty of drama still, because we have to talk about the driver transfers. Hell yeah. As mentioned, Lewis Hamilton was already going to Ferrari for 2025, and Sainz secured a contract alongside Albon at Williams. Bit of a downgrade. Esteban Ocon had been fired for doing the funny with his teammate for about the 30th time. And from Haas, Nico Hülkenberg, who was having a good season, had left to Sauber in preparation for the German outfit Audi to take over the team. You know, German driver, German team. So Ollie Behrman took the second Haas seat after K-Mag was also dropped for underperforming. So Haas had an Ocon-Behrman lineup. RIP to Terrorist of the Year Kevin Magnussen. And replacing the worst man to play video games with friendly fire in them, Esteban Ocon, at Alpine, Jack Doohan was coming in to take the second seat. Mercedes, Sauber, and Visa, Cash App, Boss, Hugo, TikTok, Fortnite, Racing Bulls were yet to announce their lineup. So after the quick rest, the circus headed to the Netherlands. Lando took pole at the Dutch Grand Prix, and as usual, pro-bottled the start. Classic. But he had a dominant drive and took the win anyway after overtaking Verstappen. In Italy, again, Lando took the pole. And again, he pro-bottled the start, losing somewhere around 50 places. With McLaren looking so fast though, there's no way they wouldn't take the win. Charles Leclerc! That's right, Ferrari actually went and did it. They put together a good strategy for the first time ever. That might be a small exaggeration, but the risk of the one stop paid off for them, and Ferrari took victory at their home circuit ahead of McLaren. Lando could only manage a best of third in his hunt for the world title, and things continued to go Ferrari's way in Baku. Charles took yet another pole position, this time without being stupid.
I am stupid.
And despite Lando's championship rival Max not having great qualifying pace, actually being out-qualified by Perez this round, go on Checo, Lando suffered from Alpine's engine going on strike in classic French fashion, and was out in Q1 due to unfortunate timing of the yellow flags. In the race, Oscar and Charles battled hard for the lead, with this time the Aussie coming out on top. Sainz and surprisingly Perez were fighting for third as well, and in that battle, the wall came out on top. And Lando actually put his foot all the way down, somehow unlocked a 9th gear, and finished ahead of championship rival Max Verstappen. This meant officially McLaren took over the lead of the Constructors' Championship from Red Bull, but Max Verstappen still held on to the Drivers' Championship. Thank you, Perez, for your complete incompetence. Singapore saw undebatably Lando's best drive of the season. He took pole and didn't pro-bottle the start. He led the entire race and ended up with a dominant 20-second lead to, unfortunately, Verstappen in P2. That means Verstappen still scored enough points in P2 to keep the championship fight in his favor. We had then another quick sort of season break before the US Grand Prix, which means it's prime time to ask for your subscription because you've got this far in the video, so why the hell not? Also, it's time to fill you in on a couple more driver market changes. In an FP1 test for Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli binned it in the wall, so they announced the contract with him straight afterwards. Their standards really are quite low at the moment. Logan Freedom Sargent was replaced at the Italian Grand Prix by F2 promising rookie Franco Colapinto. And until this point, Franco had had some strong weekends. Then after Singapore, Daniel Ricciardo was booted out of F1 for the second time, and in came Liam Sergio Perez's worst nightmare, Lawson. This did happen a little later on after the US Grand Prix, but I might as well fill you in on Sauber's driver signing, which was F2 Championship contender Gabriel Bortoleto. So aside from the Visa, V-Bucks, Roblox car, all of the seats for 2025 were decided. The US Grand Prix continued the Ferrari resurgence we'd been seeing in the last few races. Leclerc dominated the race with a great 1-2 with Sainz to again inch them closer to McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. The good results continued with Sainz taking a well-deserved win in Mexico, ahead of the pro bottler Norris, who had some less than clean racing with Verstappen.
It's a 10-second time penalty for Max Verstappen Verstappen.
20 seconds, though, of those time penalties to Verstappen didn't stop him from finishing ahead of home hero Sergio Perez. Well done, Max. You managed to beat someone who was half asleep. It was also finally the points haul they needed to overtake Red Bull for second place. Thank you, Perez. Let's just say after this race, there was some Ferrari hopium going round. The next round in Brazil was an incredibly important championship round for Lando Norris. He needed to stay ahead of Max Verstappen to realistically still be in a chance with winning the championship. In the sprint, Oscar was the better driver who led the race. However, he let Lando through to take the win for his points difference. Then perhaps for the Grand Prix, the worst possible thing happened to Lando. He took pole position, and the person lining up behind him, expecting him to pro bottle the start, was none other than Osama bin Russell, baby! Oh yeah, we are so back. Let's go, Brexit geezers. But look, Lando was starting in P1 and Verstappen was all the way down in 17th. Even if he messed up the start, there is absolutely no possible way Lando Norris could not win this race. Okay, so some good luck and safety car shenanigans meant Verstappen took an incredible win ahead of the two Frenchmen who decided they wouldn't go on strike today and actually raced a good race. Mathematically, Lando could still win the championship, so it all came down to Las Vegas. Let's go frickin' gambling, boys.
Aw, dang it.
Lando needed a brilliant result. Plus, McLaren needed to finish ahead of Ferrari for the Constructors' Championship. So, of course, Osama bin Russell. Mercedes once again randomly remembered how to build a good car, securing a 1-2 win with an incredible comeback drive from Lewis Hamilton, who started down in P10. The Ferraris took 3rd and 4th, and the McLarens only could manage 6th and 7th. But it was Verstappen in 5th who celebrated the most that night.
Is it gin tonic in?
Beating Lando meant that Max had definitively won the Drivers' Championship, and Norris would remain. Lando, no World Drivers' Championship wins. It doesn't have the same ring to it. So going into Qatar, all that mattered for Ferrari and McLaren was the World Constructors' Championship. McLaren had to outscore Ferrari to secure the championship early. Qatar sprint and all is going well for them. Lando Norris gives the sprint win to Oscar Piastri as a thank you for all the help Oscar gave him when he was pursuing the Drivers' Championship. And things look set for a great McLaren weekend. Max took pole for the Grand Prix, but was demoted to 2nd after a one-place grid penalty in an incident with the eventual pole sitter, Osama. Okay, you get the idea now. In the race, Max led, with Lando close on his tail after Russell dropped back on start. Angry British men were throwing beer at the TV that day, and maybe their wives. All was going well until a wing mirror fell off Alex Albon's car. Yellow flags got deployed, but Lando Norris decided, nah, he didn't want to slow down for them today. The stewards did not appreciate that action. After some interesting decisions from race director Lance Stroll, at least that's who I assume was making the decisions, the safety car finally came out when Carlos and a piece of ham got a puncture in their front left. And this was when the stewards decided to award Lando a 10-second stop-and-go penalty. After this, Ferrari obviously outscored McLaren, with Leclerc in P2 ahead of Oscar in P3, and Sainz in P6 despite his puncture, with Lando all the way down in 10th due to his penalty. You know what? Who gives a shit about all that, though? My man, Joe, scored points in Qatar. Let's go, Joe. You really earned that Joe position in China. Anyway, it all came down to Abu Dhabi, and I'm sure you can guess which team I was rooting for. It's 10 minutes till lights out. I'm watching the race. I just pray, please. I know Charles at the back, but I believe. 5 lights go on. Come on.
Underway. Good launch off the line for the two McLarens.
Oh!
It's Yuki Tsunoda on a...
Oh! Yes! No way! Oscar's been hit!
Crash at turn 1!
Come on, Carlos! What? Verstappen!
Contact! Massive contact! Oscar Piastri making contact with the Red Bull.
Come on, Leclerc!
Innocent trying to go by Perez up
the brakes in his final start in Formula 1.
Oh, Perez! Leclerc, 11 positions on the start. I actually believe. Come on! Leclerc's up into the top 5, but if Norris wins, McLaren win the championship. So the one time he doesn't pro bottle the start when we actually needed him to. Anyway, I still believe that something could happen here. Come on, Ferrari. Come on. We've had a crash. We've had a crash. Bottas has crashed. Oh, no safety car. Bit of a snooze fest after the pit stops, but Carlos Sainz somehow goes a million miles an hour. It will be interesting.
Lando Norris wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
McLaren have won it. Constructors champions.
McLaren are world champions.
Fair play to them. It's been a great season from them. It's been a great season to watch. Next year is Ferrari's year, as we say every single time, but maybe this time it's actually true. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure you subscribe. I really appreciate you sticking by. This is the longest video I've ever made. I remember those channel memberships from these guys here really support me, so massive thank you. See you all next time. Goodbye.